Picture this for a second, okay? You are standing right at the kitchen line. It is match point.
The tension is just, yeah, it's incredibly thick.
Exactly. So your opponent's eyes widen, they wind up for a speed up, and they send this hard, like 60-mile-per-hour drive speeding right at your chest.
Right.
In that split second, your brain fires a signal to your arm, and you have to react. So the question is, are your hands going to be completely handcuffed by your own paddle, leaving you jammed and helpless? Or will you actually block it in time to keep the point alive?
But here's the crazy part. Flip that exact scenario completely on its head. The ball isn't some missile at your chest. Instead, it is a high floating lob just drifting perfectly over your left shoulder.
Oh, I love those.
Right. You have all the time in the world. But do you whiff the overhead entirely because the timing feels, I don't know, just slightly off? Or do you snap it away for a clean highlight reel winner?
It's the ultimate tension on the pickleball court. I mean, we've all been in both of those situations. And today, for this deep dive into the source material, we're exploring a fundamental question that, honestly, every single player faces, whether they realize it or not.
Yeah, they usually don't realize it.
True. The question is, does the actual physical geometry of your pickleball paddle dictate your entire strategy on the court? We're unpacking the physics and the biomechanics of two entirely distinct archetypes of warfare, the elongated Joola Perseus and the wide-body Joola Scorpius.
The premise we are working from here is that most players step onto the court having already lost the strategic battle.
Wow, really? Before they even play?
Before they even play.
Yeah.
Because they chose the wrong weapon. People routinely make their equipment choice based on, like, aesthetics or simply because their favorite pro uses it.
Right. The Ben Johns uses it, so I should mentality.
Exactly. Completely misunderstanding the actual physical trade-offs required to wield it. Your paddle is the absolute first strategic decision you make long before you even hit a warm-up dink.
Okay, so I want to start by looking at the physical footprint of these two shapes. Because to the untrained eye, if you put the Perseus and the Scorpius side by side on a table, they just look like two, carbon fiber rectangles.
Yeah, they really do.
So what are the actual dimensions we are dealing with here?
Well, the devil is entirely in the half inches. An elongated paddle, which is the Perseus archetype, is going to be about 16.5 inches long and roughly 7.5 inches wide.
Okay.
It's specifically designed to push right up against the absolute maximum length allowed by USA Pickleball regulations. It's built to act as an extended lever for your arm.
Whereas the Scorpius, which represents the wide body shape, is shorter and squatter, right? It sits around 16 inches long, but it's wider, hitting that 8-inch width mark.
Right. And to someone just getting into the sport, a half inch of length or width sounds totally negligible.
Yeah, it's just a half inch.
But when you are swinging an object at high velocity, altering the distribution of that mass changes the fundamental physics of the swing.
I'm glad you brought up mass, because I really want to talk about a term that I see thrown around in gear forums constantly, but it's rarely explained in a way that actually makes sense.
Swing weight.
Swing weight, yes. People often pick up an elongated Perseus and complain that it feels much heavier than a wide-body Scorpius, even if you put them both on a postal scale and they both weigh exactly like 8.0 ounces.
Yeah, that phenomenon highlights the critical difference between static weight and swing weight. Static weight is just what the scale reads when the object is sitting completely still.
Right.
But swing weight is a physical measurement of how difficult it is to rotate that paddle around a specific pivot point in three-dimensional space.
Which, in the context of pickleball, is your wrist.
Exactly. It's all about the wrist.
Okay, let's make this tangible for you listening right now. Think about holding a standard wooden baseball bat. If you grab that bat by the handle and try to swing it with one hand, it feels incredibly heavy.
Oh, absolutely. The weight is fighting you.
Yeah. But now, imagine putting that bat down and picking up, say, a 5-pound dumbbell. Even though the dumbbell might actually weigh more on a scale than the bat, if you hold it in your hand and punch the air, it feels much easier to move around.
Because the mass is concentrated right in your palm instead of 2 feet away.
Exactly. So how does this tie back to the paddles?
That perfectly illustrates the mechanism at play. The Perseus is the baseball bat held by the handle. The mass is distributed significantly further away from your hand, giving it a much higher swing weight.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
And the physical advantage that this high swing weight enables is something players call plow through. When you swing the elongated Perseus and make contact with the ball, the paddle decisively wins the collision.
Because it's a longer lever. You know, in the original source material, I noticed some players mistakenly claim this is about centripetal force, but that's not scientifically accurate, is it?
No, not at all.
Because centripetal force just keeps the paddle from flying out of your hand and into the net, right? The power is coming from something else entirely.
Correct. The power comes from linear velocity and angular momentum. Because the paddle is longer, the tip of the Perseus has to travel a much longer arc in the exact same amount of time as the handle.
Right.
To cover that extra distance, the tip must physically move faster through the air. You're creating a massive whip effect.
Oh, wow. So the tip is actually moving faster than the rest of the paddle.
Exactly. That increased velocity at the point of contact transfers incredible kinetic energy right into the ball.
Yeah.
It is also how players generate such heavy topspin. And because of that elongated shape, the actual sweet spot moves higher up on the face of the paddle.
So if you catch the ball near the top of a Perseus during a full-speed drive,
You will absolutely crush it.
but there has to be a physical cost to all that power, because I'll be completely honest, I've played with elongated paddles, and when I get into a really rapid-fire kitchen battle,
Right.
you know, those incredibly fast volley-for-volley exchanges where everyone is just firing at each other's chests?
Yeah, the firefights.
Right. I feel remarkably slow. I feel like I'm trying to drag my paddle through wet cement just to get it into position.
That feeling of dragging the paddle through wet cement is what we call the hand speed tax.
The hand speed tax, I like that.
It comes down to basic inertia. A high swing weight means that once you get the heavy head of the Perseus moving in one direction, Newton's first law dictates that it desperately wants to keep moving in that direction.
So to stop that heavy paddle head and instantly reverse it, which is exactly what you have to do to block a ball coming back at you, that requires immense forearm strength.
It requires strength, and more importantly, it requires time. If you are even a fraction of a second late recognizing a speed up coming at you, the Perseus will mercilessly punish you.
Because you just can't physically move it fast enough.
Right, you simply cannot get the tip of the paddle up fast enough to defend your body.
Which sets up the counter-argument for the wide-body design, I guess. If the Perseus is the long sword that you swing for power, the Scorpius is the shield.
The shield, exactly.
And that shield analogy is tied to another physics concept that blew my mind when I first understood it in the deep dive sources, twist weight.
Yes, twist weight. It measures the paddle's physical resistance to rotating sideways in your hand when you hit the ball off center.
Let me test an analogy on you to see if I have the mechanics of this right.
Go for it.
Imagine a tightrope walker high up on a wire. They hold a really long horizontal pole to keep their balance right. They don't hold a short, stubby stick, because the wider the mass is distributed sideways away from their body, the more stable they are against tipping over.
The tightrope pole is doing exactly what the Scorpius is doing. Because the Scorpius is an 8-inch wide body, it puts significantly more mass at the outer perimeter, far away from the center axis of the handle.
So it's spreading the weight out sideways.
Exactly. On a narrow, elongated paddle like the Perseus, if you hit a fast-moving ball near the edge guard, there just isn't enough lateral mass to counterbalance the impact.
Oh, and that's when it wobbles.
Right? The paddle physically twists in your grip. The face opens or closes involuntarily, and your ball dives straight into the net.
But with the Scorpius, because of that wide mass distribution, you can block a heavy drive slightly off-center, and the paddle simply refuses to wobble.
Yes. It absorbs the kinetic energy and reliably sends the ball back over the net.
That sounds incredibly forgiving.
It is incredibly forgiving, and there is a significant injury prevention element to this, too.
Oh, really? Like tennis elbow?
Exactly. High swing weight creates serious torque on your arm. The further the weight is from your wrist, the more extreme the mechanical strain placed on the extensor muscles in your forearm just to stabilize the paddle on contact.
Especially on late blocks, so those quick backhand flicks, I imagine.
100%. If you have a history of tennis elbow, swinging an elongated paddle for 2 hours is a massive risk factor. The wide body, by keeping that mass closer to your hand and preventing that violent twisting, is vastly friendlier on your joints.
I want to push back on something here, though. You're painting the wide-body Scorpius as this incredibly forgiving shield that covers up all your mistakes. Doesn't that just make it a crutch?
A crutch? How so?
Like if someone uses a wide-body paddle, are they just compensating for sloppy footwork and bad mechanics? I feel like the truly elite players wouldn't need that kind of safety net.
Well, the data from our sources actually contradicts that idea. It is not a crutch. At the highest levels of the game, it is a strategic necessity depending on your specific role on the court.
Okay, give me an example.
If we look at the pro landscape, this structural division is illustrated perfectly by the Johns brothers in men's doubles.
Okay, let's look at them. Ben Johns is historically dominant on the left side of the court. He takes the overheads, he hits the aggressive drives, and he is the one looking to finish the point. He uses the elongated Perseus.
He needs the Perseus.
Yeah.
He needs that elongated sword for the extra reach to poach into the middle, and he needs the leverage to generate put-away power when he gets an opening. But then you look at his brother, Colin Johns, who plays the right side.
Yeah.
Colin is known as the ultimate wall. He is the master of the reset, the guy who seemingly never misses a dink and can absorb any overhead smash.
And he uses the wide body Scorpius.
Exactly.
Because Colin is taking the brunt of the attacks from the opposing team. If Ben is the sniper, Colin is the bunker.
That's a great way to put it. Colin doesn't need to crush the ball. He needs to neutralize the opponent's pace. The wide body gives him the instantaneous hand speed to defend against sudden speed-ups.
And the high twist weight stability allows him to effortlessly block a blistering drive back into the kitchen, even if he doesn't hit it perfectly dead center.
Right. Their gear dictates and facilitates their entirely distinct roles.
So the geometry of the paddle aligns with the geometry of their court positioning, but this also ties heavily into where a player comes from athletically, doesn't it? We are seeing a massive influx of athletes from other racket sports, and their backgrounds seem to dictate their paddle choice almost immediately.
Oh, athletic backgrounds are a huge predictor. Players transitioning into pickleball from a high-level tennis background are accustomed to long rackets, enormous sweeping swings, and generating their own power from the baseline.
So they go straight for the Perseus.
They almost universally gravitate toward the elongated Perseus. The balance point and the extended lever simply feel familiar to their established biomechanics.
I can see that. A tennis player wants to take a huge rip at the ball. But what about players coming from a table tennis background?
Table tennis specialists thrive with the wide-body Scorpius. Think about how table tennis is played. You are standing incredibly tight to the table.
Which translates perfectly to the pickleball kitchen line.
Exactly. You're relying on lightning-fast reaction times. The entire table tennis game is built on manipulating the ball with very subtle, quick wrist movements.
Right, lots of spin and flicks.
And the lower swing weight of the wide body allows for that flicky, wrist-dominant style of play. A tennis player's larger, sweeping mechanics would actually struggle to execute those micro movements with a heavy, elongated paddle.
There is a specific mechanic we have to talk about that makes this whole geometry war even more complicated. The two-handed backhand. That shot has completely taken over the modern game.
Oh, it really has. Everyone uses it now.
Everyone from the pros to local park players is rolling two-handed backhands. So how does the physical size of the paddle affect someone who relies on two hands?
Well, this is where the physical dimensions create a brutal, hard boundary for paddle engineers. The sport is governed by USA Pickleball's 24-inch rule.
Right, the 24-inch rule. Remind me how that works.
The combined length and width of any legal paddle cannot exceed 24 inches.
Wait, let me do the math on that. If the maximum combined footprint is 24 inches, let's say I want the ultimate shield. I want an 8-inch wide face, so I have maximum twist weight for blocking. 24 minus 8 leaves 16. My entire paddle can only be 16 inches long.
Which means the engineers have to steal real estate from somewhere to make it fit, and they almost always steal it from the handle.
Are you serious? I'm literally sacrificing my handle length to buy more width for the face?
That is the engineering nightmare in a nutshell. The elongated Perseus typically features a 5.5-inch handle. For most adults, that is plenty of room to comfortably stack two hands.
Right, makes sense.
But to keep the Scorpius legally within the rules while maintaining that wide 8-inch face, it typically has to use a shorter handle, usually around 5.25 inches.
I mean, a quarter of an inch doesn't sound like a big deal until I guess you are in a sweaty match trying to squeeze your second hand onto the grip.
Exactly. If you have larger hands, or if your entire offensive game is built around dropping that paddle head for a heavy, two-handed backhand roll, the wide body can feel incredibly cramped.
Yeah.
You will literally feel the heel of your bottom hand slipping off the pommel.
That sounds awful.
It is. So biomechanics here isn't just about how you swing the paddle through the air. It's about whether you can physically hold the weapon securely without modifying your natural grip.
Think about your own Tuesday night rec games for a second, for you listening right now. Let's say you are a 3.5 level tournament player. You have decent fundamentals, you can dink, but you really lack put-away power.
Classic scenario.
You watch a pro highlight reel, see someone crushing the ball with a Perseus, and you think, that's it, I need more power, I'm going to buy the elongated paddle. Based on everything we've discussed in this deep dive, is that a trap?
It is perhaps the most common amateur trap in the entire sport.
Wow, really?
Yeah. The harsh reality of competitive pickleball is that amateurs do not lose matches because they lack a highlight reel winner. They lose matches because they struggle with hand speed, they get jammed on their blocks, and they pop up defensive resets.
Right, it's the unforced errors that kill you.
Exactly. If you put an elongated Perseus in the hands of an average 3.5 player, they will absolutely hit one or two blistering drives that feel amazing.
And they will remember those 2 drives forever.
Oh, they'll talk about them all the way home. But they will lose 10 points in that exact same match because they were a millisecond late on a block or because they caught a reset near the edge of that narrow sweet spot.
Because the paddle twists.
Right. The paddle will twist, and they will pop the ball right up for the opponent to smash. The overarching rule of thumb here is that the wide-body Scorpius forgives bad habits, while the elongated Perseus rewards good habits, but aggressively punishes the bad ones.
You cannot be lazy with your ready position if you use a Perseus. Think about it. If your paddle is hanging down by your waist between shots, the high swing weight guarantees you will not get it up to your chest in time to defend a body shot.
No chance. The paddle demands technical discipline.
The wide body, however, acts as a safety net. If your footwork is slightly off or you misjudge the flight of the ball, the twist weight bails you out.
It absolutely bails you out.
I am curious about where this is all heading, though, because the technology in this sport is moving at a terrifying pace. The source material highlights thermoformed paddles and carbon friction surfaces. What are those technologies actually doing, and how do they change this geometry debate?
Well, thermoforming fundamentally altered the speed of the game. Before thermoforming, paddles were essentially just glued together, and energy would leak out of the unsealed edges upon impact.
Right.
Thermoforming uses heat to mold and seal the edges of the paddle, creating a stiff, unyielding perimeter. It effectively turns the entire face of the paddle into a highly pressurized trampoline.
So when the ball hits the paddle, it compresses and explodes off the face with much more kinetic energy. The ball is literally flying faster than it ever has before.
The ball speed has increased dramatically. And when the ball is flying at your chest at 60 miles per hour, you don't have time to swing an elongated lever.
So that speed compounds the need for the wide-body Scorpius.
Exactly. You simply need that instantaneous hand speed and stability to survive a firefight. However, carbon friction surfaces allow players to put massive amounts of topspin on those fastballs, making them dip violently into the court.
And to counter that heavy spin, players desperately need the whip effect of the elongated Perseus to generate their own counterspin.
Yes.
So the market is completely splitting. Half the game requires you to swing a long sword to generate spin, and the other half requires you to hold up a wide shield to survive the speed. Surely paddle companies are trying to cheat the physics to give players both.
Well, they are trying.
Yeah.
And the entire future of paddle gear is currently focused on the manipulation of internal weighting. Since they are capped by the 24-inch rule and cannot make the physical footprint any larger, manufacturers are sneaking mass into places it normally wouldn't be.
Wait, how do you hide mass in a paddle that is half an inch thick?
By placing dense materials like lead tape or specialized foams deep inside the outer perimeter of a wide-body Scorpius, engineers are trying to give it the heavy plow-through power of a Perseus.
Oh, I see.
Conversely, they are cutting aerodynamic holes into the throat of the elongated Perseus to reduce air drag, desperately trying to give it the fast swing speed of a Scorpius. The industry is chasing the absolute holy grail of paddle physics.
Massively high twist weight stability paired with instantaneously low swing weight speed. The ultimate weapon. A sword that swings like a feather but blocks like a vault door.
Yeah, but physics remains profoundly stubborn. Every time you manipulate the mass to gain an ounce of power, you almost always pay a hand speed tax in return.
So, to synthesize all of this for you listening right now, you have to know your role on the court. If you are the wall, the tactical master of the reset who loves to play chess at the kitchen line, you need to embrace the wide-body shield. Lean into the Scorpius.
Save your elbows and maximize your hand speed.
Exactly. But if you are the closer, the aggressive tennis convert who needs leverage to dictate the point and hit heavy topspin dips, then you wield the elongated sword of the Perseus. Your gear has to match your biomechanics.
It really is a game decided by millimeters and milliseconds.
It is. So the next time you step onto the court, look down at your paddle with a critical eye. Is it actually helping your strategy, or is it fighting your natural instincts? And honestly, share this deep dive with your doubles partner, especially if they are the one constantly popping the ball up because they bought an elongated paddle that is way too heavy for their reflexes.
That is great advice.
And I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. If the paddle companies actually pull it off, if they somehow conquer stubborn physics and achieve that holy grail, creating a paddle with monstrous trampoline power and effortless instantaneous speed through advanced internal weighting about what happens to the human element of the sport.
It's a scary thought.
Right. At a certain point, a ball traveling that fast over such a short distance completely surpasses human neurological reaction times. If the weapons become truly perfect, will USA Pickleball eventually be forced to change the core geometry of the court itself? Will they have to push the kitchen line back just to give our human brains enough time to process the ball coming at us? It makes you wonder. So the next time it's match point and that hard drive is speeding right at your chest, ask yourself, are your reflexes really that slow, or are you just swinging the wrong hammer?